Hi guys, we're going to go ahead and today and work with section 10.5, which is the good old question, do we rent or do we own a house? And so there are good options to both and there's some disadvantage to both. On page 383 of your textbook, it gives you a good list of the advantages for renting and the advantages for owning and then the disadvantages. I'm not going to go into that in the video here. You can look at it in page 383 of your book. The thing when we compare whether we should rent or own a house, the big thing is you got to make sure that you are comparing the same cost. Because if you're not comparing the same things, your totals will be incorrect. When we consider our costs, we are not going to take in consideration utilities, okay? You're going to have utilities depending where you rent or own a house, and it all depends on what's going on with the market value for the utilities. Secondly, furniture. Furniture, whether you rent or whether you own, you're still going to have to buy furniture. Okay, and the last thing is your security deposit for renting an apartment. We're not going to consider that because if you take care of your apartment, you should get it back. So we are not going to consider any of those into our cost when we're looking at renting or owning. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into how do I find the total cost. And so we're going to go ahead and look first at finding the annual cost of owning a house. What we're going to do is simply add together our mortgage cost, our taxes and insurance. Remember, our taxes and insurance are set up and paid for us when we do a mortgage. So those are all considered together when we're adding up the value of our house. Then we're going to go ahead we've got another step to do, and we're going to take the total that we just got from one, and we're going to multiply it by the number of years that we plan on having this loan for, whether it's a 15-year loan, 20, or 30. We're going to take that number, multiply it by 1, the answer we got here in 1. The next step, once we do that, is we're going to add all the one-time costs. That would be our down payment. That would be closing costs. Anything that you might need to fix when you buy the house. Those one-time costs, we're going to add those totals to number 2, our total in number 2, and that will be our total cost for owning a house. Now looking over here for renting is a little bit different because when you rent, your rent more than likely will go up if you stay in an apartment for a long term. It normally goes up every 2 years, 3 years. It all depends on the area. So when we have to find total costs, we have to be careful and we need to break it down into multiple intervals because of the rent being different for different amounts of years. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and look at an example and put some real numbers into how to work with this. Okay, so our example here is in red. There's a lot to it. It is in the example in your book too if you want to look at it. It says the Morgans are deciding to buy a house or to rent. If they bought a house, their mortgage would be $500 per month for 20 years. Taxes will be $1,200 per month, and the down payment is $25,000. Closing costs are $3,000. Improvements are $2,500. So that's all for the house. Now, we also have homeowners insurance of $360 per year. If we're renting an apartment, it's going to be our rent is $750 per month, with our rent increasing $50 every 6 years. So it's going to change. So let's put this all into what we just talked about here. Let's find first the cost of our home here. So what we need to do is follow our steps. Step 1 said we needed to add our mortgage cost, our taxes, and our insurance. Okay, so how much is our mortgage cost? It says it's $500 a month and we're doing it for 20 years. So we're going to go ahead and take 12 times 500 to get what it is for 1 year total. We're going to add it to our taxes, which is per year. And we're also going to add it to our $360 for our home insurance, which is per year. This is going to give me $7,560 of what we pay every year for owning this house. Now we're going to take that total like it says in step 2, and we're going to multiply that total by the amount of years that we're going to deal with this. And so it says we have a 20-year loan. So take our total we just found, multiply it by 20, and that's going to give us our total cost here for those 20 years. Now, we now have to add into it our total one-time cost. So that would be our $25,000 for down payment, our $3,000 for our closing cost, and we had some kind of improvements done on the house, which cost $2,500. Add those one-time costs together. And now step 4 says add that one-time cost to our 20-year cost, and this gives us our total cost of our house, $181,700. Now, let's look at renting. Renting, it said our rent for the first 6 years was going to be $750. And then our rent is going to increase $50 every 6 years. Okay, how long are we going to rent? Well, if we have a 20-year mortgage, we're going to be renting for 20 years. So for our first 6 years, we pay this every 12 months. That's why we have 12. So 6 years times every month with our rent being $750. That gives us how much we're spending, $54,000 for the first 6 years. Now we need to find for the next 6 years, basically from 7 through 12. So here's our next 6 years. We're paying it every month. And now we had to bump up our rent by $50. So now we're paying $800. Do the math, and that's for our next 6 years. Now we need to do the next, okay? This will give us our next up to 18 years. So here's 6 years for every month. And now our rent bumps up another $50, so $850. Do the math, and that's for 18 years. I have 2 more years left, year 19 and 20. That's why I have 2 here, not the 6 that we've been doing. This is for year 19 and 20. We're paying every month, and our rent got bumped up another $50. So do the math. Now, once you've got all your totals for all those 20 years, add them together, and we find that the cost of renting is $194,400. Now look at our 2 totals. Which one is better? Obviously, owning the house was much cheaper. On top of it, with owning a house, we have all the equity that we built up into it. And so it is a better deal for us, in this case, to buy a house. Okay, so what does our example that we just did not take into account? Well, if you notice, if you rent, you're going to still need to have insurance, renter's insurance, and you're going to have taxes that are included. On the house side of it, your taxes and insurance will increase over time too. We didn't consider any of those costs. Also, the buyer will have the equity, like I said, building up too, and that's not included in the cost. With that example we just did, we were looking straight at the face value, which one was cheaper. Okay, so now let's go to our homework assignment. In our book there, we're example number 1, I'm going to do an example from each different section of the book. So problem number 1 says find the total of the annual cost of buying a house for each person. So we're going to look at this guy, Phillips. He has a monthly payment of $670, annual taxes of $2,500, and annual insurance costs. I want to know what his annual cost is. Well, we're going to go look at the example, and what we're going to do is we're going to take our monthly payment times the 12 that we pay for per year. We're going to add up our annual taxes and what our annual insurance is. This, when I add it all together, is giving me the cost of what I pay for 1 year of owning that house. And so when I do the math together, the 1 year of ownership for that house is $11,140. Now, if we jump to the new section of problems, that is problem number 7, and it says find the total rent paid for the number of years indicated monthly, rent and periodic. Now, we have to be careful to look at what our example says. It says we're going to rent for 11 years. Our monthly rent is $740, but then look at the white part. It says it increases $100 a month for every 3 years. So we're going to have to do intervals of 3 to figure this out. So the first 3 years of renting this apartment, here's my 3 years. I'm paying every month. That's why there's a 12. And it tells me rent is $740. I'm going to do the math, multiply them all together to get $26,640. Now I'm working towards 11 years. I've only got 3 years down. So I need to do year 4, 5, and 6. To do that, I've got 3 years again, paying every month. But remember, it said my rent went up $100 a month. So now instead of $740, I'm paying $840. Multiply them together. I'm not to 11 years yet, so now I need to do another segment of 3, and that gets me through 9. So there's 3 every month, and my rent went up another $100. Do the math, multiply it together, and now I have year 10 and 11 to deal with. So here's my 2 to deal with 9 and 11, paying every month, and my rent went up another $100, bumping me up to $1,040. Do the multiplication, add them together, and that gives me my total cost for 11 years of renting to be $115,680. Okay, now we're going to look at number 13. Since we found how much it was to rent for those time period, let's see how much it is going to be to own it. And so in problem number 13, it tells me I do a down payment of $20,730. It gives me repairs and improvements and my closing costs. So let's work through this problem. Okay, so I'm going to use $11,140. Where did that come from? That came from my yearly amount that I found up here in problem 1. We're going to be using for the next problems answers that we just got in problems 1 and 7, and actually the answer we get for 13 we'll use too. So this is our annual cost for owning this house. I am going to have it for 11 years. And so I have to multiply them to get a total. Here is my taxes. And there is my down payment. And here's my improvement and my closing cost. Add them all together and I get my total of $158,592. Now, it says which one is cheaper? Okay, is renting for the 11 years going to be cheaper or owning the house? How do we find that? We're simply going to subtract. Take this, subtract that. Okay, and in this case, it is cheaper to rent. Okay, now going on to 19. Okay, 19 is going to take stuff that we learned in yesterday's lesson and stuff we did today, and we're going to combine them all to a real life situation. So 19 says Mr. Phillips, and we're going to use exercise our answers from 1, 7, and 13, took out a 30-year loan for $100,706 at 7% every month. And the house appreciated 35% over the 11 years he owned it. Find the original cost of the house, the appreciation, and the loan reduction amount for after 11 years. Give our answers to the nearest dollar. So let's go ahead and find our total cost. Our total cost is our actual loan, our loan which was $100,706, and we're going to add it to our down payment. Okay, you're going to get your total. I haven't given your totals. I'm going to let you do that, but we'll work through the steps to do this. Once I get my total cost, I'm going to go ahead and move to appreciation. Remember, appreciation is the appreciation percent that they give you in the problem times the total cost of what I just found. Okay, then I'm going to have to work with my loan reduction. Okay, my loan reduction, I've got to find I, and I is using what they gave me in the problem, the 7%, turn it to a decimal, divided by 12. My N is going to be 360, subtract how much is 11 years. So 11 times 12, when I subtract it from 360, we're talking about my N being 228. Now, we already know our monthly payment for this house. How do I know that? That is actually in my problem that they give you up here in problem number 1. So look back to the chart that they gave you for problem 1, and you're going to find what your monthly payment is. You're going to insert it for R, do these totals, and that's going to give you your AN. Then go ahead and subtract that from your house loan. Okay, what was your house loan? Well, it told us our house loan was $100,706 in the problem. That will give you your loan reduction. So that's what you're doing for number 19. 20, they're wanting you to find the equity. Remember, equity is our down payment, appreciation, and loan reduction. Okay, you're going to find those totals right there in the chart for problem 13 and problem 7 and 1. So look for your totals. You're doing all of that so that you can find the equity, because our next part of this problem is we need to find our total cost. Our total cost is the answer that we have up here in problem 13 that we got. So look for your answer. You're going to take the answer for number 13, subtract the equity that you just found up here, and that's going to give us our total cost of buying the house. Now look at total cost for renting. You're going to go back to problem number 7 here, the $115,680, and subtract the answer that I just got up here for total cost. Okay, compare the two numbers, and what do you think is better? Is it better to rent or is it better to buy? So these, go ahead and now finish the problems. Compare the different problems like the examples we just did. If you have any questions, ask me in Google Classroom or send me a text or email. Have a good day.